Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kansachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagatgurum. So today we have, actually it is tomorrow, the Krishna Janmashtami, but we generally do it on the weekend so that all can participate. So we are here today to celebrate the Krishna Janmashtami. It's the birthday of Sri Krishna. And the main scripture which depicts the life of Sri Krishna is Shrimad BHagavatam. So among the Vaishnavas, this is the scripture, the core scripture, which depicts not only the life of Sri Krishna, actually all the divine incarnations of Bhagavan has been depicted here, finally, at last depicting the life of Sri Krishna. So that's a wonderful idea in our Sanatana Dharma, that we cannot limit God by saying that He descends only once. Certain ages, we find that He has been incarnating again and again to show us the way in this life. We find that the problems, all the difficulties of life, the challenges of life, in every age we meet in a new way. The problems remain, the nature changes, and that's how the need for Avatara to come again and again, to show us the way as per the problems of the contemporary age. So as per the problems, they come and they just show us the way. The perennial principles remain the same. The perennial principle, what's the perennial principle? For all the scriptures, in all the religions, we will find that we don't limit ourselves in this physical body. That we are not just this psychophysical existence. There is a spiritual dimension of our existence. Unless we relate to that spiritual dimension of our existence, we can never find any and some of the pertinent answers to many of the questions of our life. The answers to the questions of our life we can never find. Everything will be a patchwork unless we relate to the spiritual dimension of our existence. I won't take much time because today we have already taken much time, but I will just relate some small stories with which we will understand that what we mean by relating to the spiritual dimension of existence. This example which we give very often in our classes, that in a classroom, the teacher asked the student to draw exactly 4 triangles by joining 4 points. You can try. It's almost impossible to draw exactly 4 triangles by joining 4 points. If you try, you will find that 2 lines are intersecting to create the 5th point. And even if you have not, you have to intersect, and also it is not exactly 4 triangles, because you will find that 2 triangles can be taken together to make another triangle. So there will be more than 4 triangles. At any time you will find it is impossible to exactly draw 4 triangles by joining 4 points. You can try, even when you go back to your home, you can try. It's impossible. And the students were trying their best. They couldn't answer. And then the teacher, what he did, he spotted just 3 points in the board, in the whiteboard. And he drew 1 triangle by joining the 3 points. And now he asked the student to imagine the 4th point to be in the space. Okay? Now you join all the points which are on the board with that point in the space. You will get a triangular pyramid with exactly 4 triangular faces, isn't it? Isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly 4. So why we were not getting the answer? Because we were trying to find the answer in the 2 dimension of the page. All the answers in the 2 dimension of the page we were trying to find, and it was impossible. Unless I take the 3rd dimension into account, I can never find the answer. Similarly, in our day-to-day life, nowadays in psychology they say we have to be resilient. That resilience is one of the very good qualities. Even all the spiritual life actually speaks of that. It is not running away from life. It is to face the challenges of life in such a way that we can be more resilient. What's the basic thing in all the religion that speaks of resilience through spirituality? It has been found that those who have faith in the spiritual dimension of their existence, culture the spiritual dimension of existence, they are more resilient. Why it happens? Because very simply we can understand that that whenever there is a problem in our life, whenever we are going through a crisis in our life, what is the difference between an optimist and a pessimist? A pessimist will think that this problem is something permanent. There is no solution out of it. It is something permanent. In the modern psychology, they speak a very interesting thing that is called defeatist attitude you develop because of learned helplessness. That I have went through some trauma in my life, and that trauma was something inescapable. I was going through some inescapable trauma, and from that I have learned helplessness. It is something I have learned, and that has become my bias. In all the future situations, I think, most probably the hurdle is too much. I cannot overcome it, and I have learned the helplessness. You will find that it happens in all fields of our life. That some challenges, of course, are inescapable, but it's not that all the challenges are inescapable, but we develop that defeatist attitude. So in a very short way, we can say what's the difference between a pessimist and an optimist. A pessimist always thinks that there is no way out. All the problems are permanent, and not only that, it is all pervading. It pervades the entire life. Just to speak, that most probably as a student, I may be not good in all the subjects. I am weak in a particular subject. I cannot get good grades in that subject. And I am so much bothered with that all other subjects starts getting affected. If I would have taken into consideration, okay, let me keep this local. This one problem is, I have so many positive things. One small thing is negative. Why so much bothered about the negative? Why not I build my life on my strength? Why just dwell on weakness? Then I wouldn't have allowed the problem to be all pervasive. I would have just kept it local. But for the pessimist, what happens? They make it all pervasive. But an optimist can keep it local. Now, I won't go into the very detailed discussion. You will find this for a spiritual person who has the faith in the spiritual dimension of existence. What's the basic thing? That I am not this limited body-mind complex. The idea that we find nowadays, we find what's that? We have only one life. With this idea, we can of course have some exhilaration at certain point of life. When your body is strong, your mind is strong, you can have all those exhilarations. But life won't be same. The nature gives us everything at certain point of time and will take away everything at certain point of time. That's the plan of nature. I'm not going to be young. I'm not going to be always this alert in my mind. Intelligence won't be in the same standard. It's going to dwindle. And then I find that what I have taken for granted is not there. So I can never relate to this physical plane of existence as the be-all and end-all of my existence. As a human being, we are built in such a way that spirituality has to be taken into consideration. That it is a basic necessity of our life. It is not something an optional. If you are spiritual, then what happens? You know that I do exist beyond this physical dimension, and that none can touch. There's a conscious principle, my existence none can touch. It is a witness of everything, but it is not in any way adulterated by anything, affected by anything. It's above that. And when you get identified with that, that's the different dimension of existence. Now you will find all the problems are becoming temporary. If that's my real nature, all the things come and go. Agama, apayina, anitya. They are not going to stay with me permanently. Yes, they are there for the time being. I have to bear with them, but they are not something which defines me, which is going to be with me all the time. It will pass. So this idea gives that strength, resilience, because all the problems become temporary. It's no more permanent. And again, it becomes something local. It cannot pervade the real me. As a spiritual person, I know that life is a journey, is a travel. I'm just traveling. And this is not my final destination. So everything becomes local. All the exhilarations, all the joys, as well as the sorrows. Everything is local. The real me is something beyond that, which nothing can touch, nothing can tarnish. In Vedanta, they say that the world is something like a projection. It's not real. The real Krishna is in the very first, as we were speaking of Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam starts with a verse, very interesting verse, that we say that we believe in the God with form. Actually, it is not so. The real divinity is something beyond form. What's that? In the very first verse it is mentioned, Satyam Param Dhimahi. I meditate on that supreme truth. What's that? Which is something on which the entire world is projected, and they give a nice example. What's the example? It's just like when you are traveling through the desert, you see that huge reservoir. In the very first verse of Bhagavatam, that's the example they have given. The huge reservoir, and you think, oh, there's a huge reservoir, I have to quench my thirst. I'm very thirsty. I start moving towards it, and in a short time you realize that it's not it's a reservoir. Suddenly it vanishes, and then you realize, oh, it's a mirage. So I have read it in my textbook. I had a conceptual knowledge of it, but for the first time I realized what it is. So realization is something different from conceptual knowledge. When you realize, there's a big difference. Swamiji Vivekananda is saying there's a very big difference. What's the difference? The next day, Swamiji is saying that it happened in Swamiji's life as a wandering monk. The next day, again I was traveling through the desert. Again I saw the reservoir. I saw. Because as I'm in my body, mind, senses, I saw it. But today there is a big difference. Yesterday I was dragged by it. Today it has lost the power to drag me. Because I know it's a mere projection. So now you will understand that as a projection, it is unreal. It is not real in all the phase of time, past, present, and future. Before I was deluded, it was not there. When the delusion was there, I saw it. When the delusion broke, it was not there. So its existence is not in the three phases of time. But the desert, the substratum, it is always there, isn't it? So similarly, the ultimate truth is like that, the substratum. It is. Nothing can affect it. Everything else which we are seeing is a mere projection. You may say, is it true? Even in science you can understand. The red flower is not red. There is no color outside. The light is falling on the flower. It is just various wavelengths of light. One of the wavelengths is reflected. Others are absorbed. That touches your retina. The function of light stops there. It doesn't reach your brain. Your brain is dark. No light goes there. What goes there is that wavelength of light getting converted into some nerve current, nerve impulse of a particular frequency. That when reaches the color center, the color is projected from your mind. The color is not out there. So what I see, my mind is actually a projector. It is projecting this world of name and form. How it is possible? Because a conscious principle is there just in your computer. When you see what happens, the computer, the hard disk of the computer is just like a dead log wood, unless the bias voltage passes through it. And then the world of virtual reality comes out of it as you press the keyboard. Our senses are like the keyboard. The bias voltage is the consciousness. Mind is like that hard disk. It is totally inert unless the conscious principle is activating it. And then the world of virtual reality is projected from your mind. It is all projected. We have a very poor imitation of the projector. Our so-called projector projects only light and sound. But the projector which the nature has created, as in the mind, can project the five senses. And that five senses, the sound, the sight, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, and what you touch. These are the five. This constitutes our world. These five projections constitutes the reality. Now, can you say it is reality? It is a projection. As the mind is there, just as the conscious, that's when the light falls on the prism, it breaks into the spectrum of 7 colors. Similarly, when the conscious principle comes in association with the mind, like a prism, breaks the consciousness into this world of name and form. So that ultimate conscious principle, which is beyond the mind, is Krishna. That's the Param Dhimahi has been spoken of. As I told, I won't take much time. He comes down. Why he comes down? So now there are 2 types of ignorance. Our ignorance is we don't know. We take this world as reality. We can never believe that this world is a mere projection or a shadow. We can never believe. Why? Because we are bound in the Bhagavatam, they will say, by Gunamaya. I won't go to the elaboration. It takes a lot of time to go on this discussion. With a very, very famous example of Plato, I will try to understand that why we don't understand we are deluded. The Plato's very nice example of 5 cavemen, if you have heard of it. There were 5 cavemen who were enchained in such a way that they were facing the wall of the cave. They were sitting in the entrance of the cave with their back on the entrance and their face facing the wall of the cave. And just outside the cave there was a road, and on the other side of the road there was some fire burning. Always the fire was burning. And throughout the day that road was used by the villagers to go to the marketplace. So a lot of noise. The horse carriage will be going, persons will be going, they will be talking. And what these 5 cavemen used to see, they were enchained in such a way that they could see only the wall. They could not see what's going on behind. They were enchained and their head was fixed in such a way. Now they could only see the shadows and could hear the noise, nothing else. They could see because the fire is there, people are all walking, and there's all these people, horse carriage, which are passing, their shadow falls on the wall. That's the thing they see. From their very birth, they were enchained like that. So that's what they see, and they hear the noise. And that's the reality for them. Now somehow, one of them, the chain was removed. His chain was removed. He turned around, and he was amazed that throughout my life, I thought this shadow as the reality. For the first time, I see this wide panorama, expanse of light and this beauty, this scenery, the mountains, the lakes, the rivers. He goes out, shouts in ecstasy, and then he comes back to give the news to the other 4. That you are in delusion. The reality is something which is behind you. And these 4 things, he has gone mad. He has gone mad. Because throughout the life, that's what they're seeing. They are still enchained. They can never relate to the fact that what's the reality. And that's our condition. And that's the Gunamaya in which we are bound. So in our scriptures, they say, in the Bhagavatam, they say, God comes down again and again. He comes from the realm of this panoramic beauty to the world in which we are enchained, and in the world of shadows. He comes down to remove our chain so that we, by relating to his life, can relate to the spiritual dimension of our existence. So that's the Atma Maya. With that, he comes down. So Krishna, in that way, he is Bhagavan. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. He is the God who has incarnated. Like in any other religion, that we say that God, that he is also a prophet. He is not the only prophet. Yes, he is also a prophet. There are so many prophets. He is also a prophet. There's a nice story in the gospel that that Arjuna at last was convinced that Krishna is the avatar, is the incarnation. And he proclaimed that you are the God incarnate. You are the only one. Just as sometimes, as when we become fanatics, we say, you are the only one who has came down. And Krishna told, well, come with me. Come with me. And he took him to a grapevine. And from distance, he saw the vine and he told, what is that? He told, it's just the vine in the grapeyard. Well, come near. And when Arjuna went near, he found that each of the grapes in the vine is Krishna. Innumerable Krishna. Avatara hi asankhaya. That's in Bhagavatam. These words are there in Bhagavatam. So Avatara hi asankhaya. So he is born again. And then Arjuna realized the true import of the divine incarnation. Swami Vivekananda used to say a very interesting thing, that it is not that the spiritual reality can be experienced only by the so-called prophets. It is not the property of the general humankind. That's what, again, sometimes in the doctrines and the dogmas we find, that we just have to believe. We cannot realize. Again, Swami Vivekananda is saying a very interesting thing. If that's the fact, then what's the utility of religion? There's no utility. He gives a very nice example. Suppose during the COVID, when the vaccination came out, immediately the vaccination was not sold in the market. We heard that some vaccination has been discovered, has been invented. But at the beginning, initial stage, that it was going through that experimentation, case studies, that it will be experimented on 100 persons who is affected. And if we find the result is 90% or higher, then only I can say that yes, it is something which can be patented and then can be prescribed. If only 1 or 2% gets healed, that's of no use. So our Swamiji is saying that if only the divine incarnation is the one who is entitled for the spiritual realization, others have to have faith, then it's a very, very poor medicine which cannot be patented. It has to be successful in all. And the Avatara comes for that. He comes down to enlighten us in our spiritual dimension of our existence, so that in this life we can understand the worth of the human life. It is not just the sensate pleasures. We think that as a human being, our goal is ultimately the sensate pleasures of life. Again, Swami Vivekananda is indicating a very nice thing, that with all our inventions, with all our gadgets, we are not equipped, we are not designed by nature to really enjoy the pleasures of life. You will find when there is a crime scenario, with all your senses, with all your gadgets, at last you need a dog, a trained dog to go and smell and find out what it speaks of. That the nature has given the animals more keen senses. The senses are very keen. With all our gadgets, we can never enjoy the world the way they enjoy. The way you see the dog enjoys the meal, can you enjoy? The senses are very keen. As a human being, to enjoy the sensate pleasures of life is not the goal. The human being the uniqueness is that we can relate to the spiritual dimension of existence. No others can. And unless we do that, the human life won't have any fulfillment. And that's the thing, to indicate that the God comes down and shows us the real worth. I will take, as I told, that as we are already late, we won't take much time. I will just end today with a story, a nice story, that the touch of the divine can really, that's when you get the touch of the spirit, the divine, your worth increases. That the auction was going on. We don't know if you heard the story, very interesting. An auction was going on. A very old guitar was being sold, was auctioned. And the bid, they were asking for the bidding was going on. So someone came and told $5. It was such a nice guitar. Please raise your bid. So at last they found some 10, 15. It was not going beyond that. And suddenly an old man came. He came to the platform where that guitar was kept. He took the guitar in his hand, wiped it nicely, cleaned it, and then tightened the strings, and then played a very nice tune. Very nice tune. All were enthralled. And then he kept the guitar and left. And then suddenly someone told $100, $200, $300, $500. It has started increasing. What has happened? It has got the touch. So the divine incarnates for that only, to give the divine touch in our heart so that our value also increases. We realize that as a human being, we do have a worth which is something special, and that can give the ultimate fulfillment. So on this special day, let us be open to all the divine incarnations, in all the religions. Because in all the religions, Swamiji used to say that what's the proof that all the religions are true? You'll say a tree is to be judged by its fruit. If you get a good fruit, you say the tree is good. Now all the religion has really created great men of character, of nobility, of compassion heart. Is there any religion which has not created? They've all created. A tree is not judged by a few rotten fruits. A few rotten fruits will be there. But I judge the tree by its best fruit, isn't it? Not a few rotten fruits. So though we see a lot of tensions, turmoil in the name of religion, but they have the potency to create that wonderful fruits, which it has in the history. If you look, it has created. All the religions, it has created. So we need that religion for getting that divine touch, that spirituality to get a divine touch. So let us be open to them so that we can realize the worth of this human birth, which is to be identified with the spiritual dimension of our existence. So may Krishna bless us in our journey to realize that ultimate truth. With this prayer, I would like to conclude our discussion here. Thank you all. Namaskar.